Hello, everyone. It's been quite a week, but I'm very happy to welcome you to day 4 of our Humanities Week. What can you do with a Humanities PhD? And this is such a timely conversation, especially after our discussion on Tuesday with the National Humanities Alliance's Scott Muir, who actually has a podcast titled, "What Are You Going to Do with That?" As many of you know, I direct the Humanities Research Center. My name is Tracy Stonestreet. I'm also a professor in the English department, and I'm very happy to welcome you to an exciting session today, highlighting the career paths and accomplishment of some of our brilliant alumni. Before we get started, I'd like to thank Ronnie Sisavath, Ellie Musgrove, and everyone involved in the planning and execution of this week's events, our colleagues across campus for supporting and showing up, our students, community members, everyone in the audience. It really takes a village to pull off a week like this. And we look forward to your feedback as we prepare for our Humanities Week next year. We hope this will be, one of our annual offerings. To introduce today's panelist, my co-conspirator and wonderful colleague, Dr. Mary Caton Lingold, has offered wonderful ideas to prepare for this webinar. So I'm happy to introduce her, and then she'll take over, introduce our panelists, and moderate discussion. Dr. Mary Caton Lingold is the director of the MATX program, as many of you know, and an associate professor in the English department. She's an interdisciplinary scholar specializing in the literature, culture, and music of the early African Atlantic world, as well as the fields of sound studies and digital humanities. As many of you here know, she's the author of African Musicians in the Atlantic World, Legacies of Sound and Slavery, published just last year by University of Virginia Press. If you're interested in her Meet VCU Authors talk, there is a recording you can access. And she's also the editor of Digital Sound Studies, published by Duke in 2018. In addition to traditional academic writing, Dr. Lingold collaborates with artists and employs multimedia to bring her research to public audiences. Dr. Lingold, thank you so much for bringing these wonderful graduates together, or alumni together today, and for all your contributions to and collaborations with the HRC.
Thank you so much, Christina. And I want to thank Dr. Stanchu, the Humanities Research Center, and also Ronnie Sisavath and Ellie Musgrave for all your support putting this event on, and for all the outstanding events this week at Humanities Week. It's been a blast, really, and I'm looking forward to more. And I'm really honored for MATX to be represented as part of this celebration. We're very proud to be the only humanities doctoral program at VCU, and that's a banner that we feel is really important to protect and preserve and grow. And I wanted to have an opportunity to showcase our extraordinary alumni and bring them back to share with our wider community their journeys since receiving their PhD at MATX, both to, as I said, share with the broader community, but also for our current students to have a sense of what they have to look forward to ahead of them. And I know we also have some prospective students in the audience, so I hope you'll get a sense of what MATX is all about and the wonderful diversity of our students and their intellectual pursuits and their professional experiences. As you'll see, many of the folks who are going to be speaking today came to our program with incredible expertise and professional experiences before getting to us. And that's something that I think is really special about our degree, and that I'm really proud of. So today we have 4 speakers, and they will, I've asked them to prepare 3 to 5 minutes talking about their own personal journey from when they received their degree to their current professional, and artistic and intellectual lives. And I intentionally wanted to choose people who are in a variety of kinds of positions in terms of the institutions that they're at and the types of roles that they have, to showcase a kind of diversity of professional opportunities. It was interesting though, after I chose invited the panelists, I realized you all have some interesting overlaps that I wasn't anticipating. 3 of our panelists graduated in 2019, which I didn't. So you must have a strong group, which I didn't realize. 3 of you are also working in English departments, including one of you who did not have a background in English. So I think that's really interesting. And some of you have your backgrounds in terms of your degree programs also have some interesting overlaps. So it'll be fun to talk about that. In a moment, I'm going to pass it over to the speakers. I'll tell you the order of our speakers, but I'm going to introduce everyone one at a time so that you have fresh in mind everyone's biography. Going first will be Dr. Michael Means. Then second will be Dr. Tracy Stonestreet. Third is Dr. Paul Robertson. And fourth will be Dr. Allison Bennett Dyche. After they've shared a bit about their journeys, I will open it up for Q&A. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat. You know, as you go along, if something occurs to you, it's never too early to type a question. And then later during the Q&A, we'll read some of those, but also if you're interested in raising your hand and speaking them or, you know, using your own voice to do so, that will be welcome. So for our first speaker now, Dr. Michael Means is an associate professor of English at Brightpoint Community College, where he has worked since 2019. Michael's research and teaching interests include adaptation studies, multi-ethnic American literature and visual culture, African American literature, world literature, media literacy, comparative literature, and composition studies. His work emphasizes the role of race, ethnicity, nationality, gender, and sexuality as they intersect in the production of culture. He is currently working on articles that examine the adaptive legacies of Harlem's gay rebel, Richard Bruce Nugent, and the most photographed American of the 19th century, Frederick Douglass. I also, for each of the speakers, want to share a bit about their educational background before coming to MATX, and also the title of their dissertation, just for fun. So Dr. Means earned a BA in political science from Radford University and an MA in English at VCU before joining the MATX program. And his dissertation title is Adaptive Acts, Queer Voices, and Radical Adaptation in Multi-Ethnic American Literary and Visual Culture. Thank you so much, Dr. Means, for kicking us off. Over to you.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully everyone can hear me. All right. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Stanchu and Lingold, for the invitation to be here to help celebrate HRC in 10 years, which is amazing, the amazing work that's going on. And also a shout out to Ronnie as well. Thank you for all your hard work you've been doing for the past few years. I know it's not an easy job, right? And I do know that firsthand because the HRC it holds a special place in my journey, you know, from MATX to where I am now. So I worked as the administrative coordinator at the HRC for a couple years, and this was towards the end of my time in the MATX program. And so I just wanted to think a little bit more about how I got from there to where I am now. And what came up for me was this idea of making connections. And of course, we all know the importance of making personal connections, networking, all that good stuff. But I was thinking about making connections with a mission, right? Making a connection to a mission. And so I think now is a great time for MATX students, or even really for ourselves, to remind ourselves of what a personal mission might be. Yeah, you're going to make those connections with the faculty, with your peers, with folks across the university and beyond as it relates to your work, as it relates to your research, your interests. But also you want to think now maybe about what a personal mission statement for yourself might be. So that's something I want to talk about. You know, there's institutional mission statements, but I think it's nice to, if you had a personal mission statement as you're navigating, you know, what you're going to do after MATX, how does your personal mission statement meet up with those institutional mission statements, right? In a way that you can contribute to that mission, you feel empowered by that mission, and that mission is going to bring you joy. And so I know we're going to talk later about, you know, as far as what I've been doing, working at community college, and I would love to field questions about those who are interested in the fulfilling and rewarding experience of working at a community college. Here at Brightpoint, for instance, our mission includes, a success story, student success, community vitality, and a success story for every student. And I'm committed to those missions, to that mission and that vision. But I was thinking back about how I got here, and it first started at HRC as a graduate assistant, working, putting on programs, putting on events. And at the time, Dr. Richard Godbeer was the director. And I was so committed to that mission. I wanted people to be at these events, right? So I was spending a lot of time with extra promotion. And he noticed that. He noticed my commitment to kind of celebrating the humanities and giving them that platform and getting people in the seats. So a couple of years after that experience, a paid position came up in the HRC. He thought about me because of he saw that commitment I had to that mission at the time. And I got that position, paid position at the HRC. Again, worked that for a couple of years. Now, that was an interesting time. It was great because I was dissertating at the time. And so, we had, our events, our programming, but there was a fiscal side to the job at the time. So I would kind of finish, maybe reconciling the threads of my argument in my dissertation. I was able to kind of step away for that for a little bit and just reconcile numbers, which was kind of refreshing. But I was committed to, and folks in the dean's office at the time saw this, I was committed to that stewardship of the resources, right? Because we know we don't always have the most resources that are given over to the humanities, right? And so we want to use those as wisely as we can. They saw my commitment to that stewardship, and towards the end, I was wrapping things up, about to graduate. Dr. Godbeer, he was transitioning out as well. So it's a good opportunity to think about what was going to happen next. And they were like, well, there's a position in the Robertson School at VCU. And so I was like, sure, let's do this. Good job, better job. Transition to the Robertson School. And of course, I love the folks there, working with people like, Dr. Marcus Messner, all the faculty and staff. They welcomed me, and I was committed to their mission too. And at that time, they were working through some projects, some renovations, in lab spaces, student spaces, of course, coordinating travel for the faculty there and research funds. And I was committed to that, and I got joy out of it. But what I realized, and I wish, this is what I come back to, I wish I would have been clear about what my personal mission statement was, because I had an inkling that something wasn't exactly in line. It was good, but it wasn't exactly in line because, after finishing my MA at VCU, I did class, did courses as an adjunct at Brightpoint. It used to be John Tyler, Brightpoint now. All the way up to start at MATX. Of course, MATX, I was able to teach courses in the English department, both as part of the assistantship, but also later as an adjunct. And I knew that those were some of the best moments I had as part of my MATX career, right? Engaging with my students, being in class, even those 7 p.m. to 9:40 classes on like a Monday or Tuesday, I was eager to get in there and kind of see what my students had to say about what we were reading at the time, engaging with them. And so I knew that, but I thought, I like this admin thing. Let's just see where it goes. And I kind of put that to the side. But that I realized was a central part of what I understood to be my mission, right? My mission to support students, to engage with students. I thought I could just, maybe do a class as an adjunct while working in the administrative role. But luckily, I got a phone call one day from Brightpoint. A position came up. They thought of me because they saw my commitment to their mission at the time. So even as an adjunct, I was showing up to department meetings, I was coming to gatherings, showing I wanted to be connected, I wanted to be in the loop. And so they thought about me when this position came up. And I said yes. I was like, you know what? That's when I finally, the light bulb went off. I was like, okay, I can't put this aside. I want to be in the classroom. So I said yes, I jumped in. I've been here since then. But I think things could have been, maybe more easily navigated, again, if I had that personal mission statement kind of ahead of time. And so I look forward to talking more about those experiences, talking about kind of leveraging some of the experiences you might have outside of academia, right, and making use of those. But also, I'm very excited to talk about any questions anyone has about if you're on that teaching path or you want to take a teaching path and you wonder what that might look like in the community college setting. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much, Michael. Our next speaker is Dr. Tracy Stonestreet. She is director of the University of Mary Washington, the UMW Galleries at the University of Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and the academic director of, I don't know if it's CCAC or SECAC, the Southeastern College Art Conference. Tracy's research pursuits have focused on the global artistic shifts towards action during the 21st century and the evolving relationship between performance art and long-lasting art objects. After graduating from the MATX program in 2019, Tracy served as assistant professor of contemporary art and performance at VCU Qatar before moving to the University of Mary Washington. And before joining MATX, Tracy earned two BAs, one in art and design and one in history, both at North Carolina State University, and also an MFA in studio art from UNC Chapel Hill. Dr. Stonestreet's dissertation title is Performance Artifacts as Indexes of Queer Bodies, Their Engagement with and Challenge to the Archive. Dr. Stonestreet.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction, and thanks everyone who was involved in putting this together, both this session and this week of events. It's really awesome to see the HRC continuing to grow and doing great things. I also was able to be a graduate assistant for the HRC in its early days. I think it was one of the things I did my sophomore year, Lord, my second year in the program. And it was a great experience, a lot of event organizational management, learning those things on the job. Well, anyway, so I will jump in by saying that when I entered the MATX program, I really was one of the people who thought it was going to be a creative PhD, right? And I worked with Eric Robertson and had a lot of really great conversations about what that could mean and how to continue to have a creative practice during the PhD process. For me, I know I'm supposed to focus on what I've done after, but for me, what that manifested as is I got some incredible experience working as the studio assistant for Sonia Clark, who was the chair of the craft department at the time. I got to take classes, independent studies with faculty members from across the arts disciplines, but it ended up not evolving into an exhibition at the end of that process. I focused just on my dissertation, and that was the result of some great conversations with mentors. And I think, as Michael is talking and sharing about mission, I think my real underlined thing for my 5 minutes is mentorship and how important it's been for me to have people in my life who've really guided me through and had hard and good conversations with me about this process, what it means to be a scholar of art, what it means to be an interdisciplinary practitioner, because we are, a population of one on all of our tiny islands. And so how does that mean you navigate the world? So talking with Dr. Robertson, talking with Sonia Clark, I made a sort of a deliberate choice that I would focus on research and focus on writing and developing those skills while at VCU. So then I graduated in December of 2019, I think with Michael, and what a great time, what a wonderful time to graduate with a doctorate just moments before an international pandemic. I think I was scheduled to speak at a biennial in Brazil in April of 2020. And up until the week before, I was like, it's fine. I can do that. That's a really great first thing for me to do after I graduate, even though all flights were canceled and the biennial was canceled. But anyway, so immediately following graduation, I worked as an affiliate graduate faculty for VCU Arts. I needed that extra title beyond adjunct because I served on thesis committees. And so in order to serve on thesis committees, you have to be affiliate faculty. I did that for a year and a half, simultaneously developing a working relationship with Dr. Radha Dalal, who is the chair of the art history department at VCU Qatar. So working with VCU Qatar over the pandemic began the relationship that would then develop into my visiting assistant professorship there. I worked with VCU Qatar for 2 years as full-time assistant professor but I did so from the home campus in Richmond because of the pandemic. It was an alignment of international circumstances that I could not move to Qatar to fulfill that role in person. And then by the time doors were opening, everyone needed to be back online. Some things had shifted in my own understanding of what I wanted out of my career, as well as my kind of geolocation. So one of the things that I realized in my position as an assistant professor of art history is that my passion is for the production of exhibitions, is for working directly with living artists, being kind of more on the ground than in a spot of research. And so the research I was producing as a professor was curatorial. I put together some traveling exhibitions that are still traveling around the United States, and did a lot of writing based on exhibitions. And so when I looked for my next step, I knew I wanted to sort of refocus towards curatorial and exhibition work. So the work that I'm doing at University of Mary Washington, I am administrative faculty, which is an amazing position because I am not quite staff and not quite faculty, and I'm also staff and faculty. So I run 2 galleries on campus. I manage the university's art collection and its placement. I also teach 1 class a term. So I get that access with students, and I get to have that. I love teaching, so I get to have that as part of my life, but my research element gets to be really in the gallery working with artists. And then, so there's that. And then I will speak just really briefly about CCAC. So while I was at VCU, I was involved with CCAC as a national conference, but I also found a mentor in Dr. Carly Finizzi, who is an alum of the art history program at VCU, and she was working in the art history department at the time. CCAC transitioned recently from a model that needed a university host to an independent model. And because of my work with Carly, she asked me if I would step up and be the academic director and pilot the new program. I'm very happy to answer tons of questions about what that is like and how that overlays with my work at UMW during the Q&A if people are interested. But I think that's good for now.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Our next speaker is Dr. Paul Robertson. He is assistant professor in the Department of English at Marshall University. He teaches courses in Appalachian literature. Oh, excuse me. Before that position, he taught courses in Appalachian literature, Appalachian folklore, and multi-ethnic literature at VCU for 7 years before coming to Marshall in the fall of 2023. He's been published in the North Carolina Folklore Journal and the Journal of Popular Culture. He is currently working on a book, The Mountains at the End of the World, Subcultural Appropriations of Appalachia from 1990 to 2010. Before coming to VCU's MATX program, Paul earned a BA in English at VCU and then 2 master's degrees at Appalachian State, one in Appalachian Studies and the other in English. And his dissertation title was The Mountains at the End of the World, Subcultural Appropriations of Appalachia and the Hillbilly Image from 1990 to 2010. And Dr. Robertson, before I pass the mic over to you, I have to toot your horn a little bit because you're such a beloved instructor when you were teaching in the English department here at VCU. And I'm currently teaching a senior seminar. And on the first day of class, I asked students to write, what's been your favorite thing about being an English major at VCU, and what's your least favorite thing? And one student went on at length about how her first class in the department was with Dr. Robertson and how you changed her life and just inspired her so much. So your legacy is still very much felt on our campus in the classroom, and wanted to share that.
Thank you, Mary Caton. That means a lot to me. And I do actually still get emails every now and again from VCU students trying to do some ad hoc advising. I miss them terribly. So what I'm about to say is already going to overlap with what you've heard previously. I too did a bit of a stint with the HRC after I completed my coursework. I was very grateful for that. During working on my dissertation writing, I was fortunate, and I do use that word very consciously, fortunate to start adjunct teaching with the VCU English department in 2016, and also started teaching at the Virginia State University English department. Did adjunct teaching for several years. I remember one semester, 2020, I believe, right, of course, the pandemic. I was actually teaching 6 classes a semester between the two institutions. So I'll be honest, and I guess I would kind of throw this out as a caution to some students working on their dissertation. That did crimp my research and writing quite a bit as I was trying to pull my dissertation together. So I had this mindset of need to teach, need to work, and it was truly invaluable experience. The VCU English department gave me an opportunity to teach a wide array of classes, and I know for several years, I sort of felt a sense of ownership to the English 205 and 206, the American Lit General Ed sequence. But I got to teach the multi-ethnic lit classes. I actually became full-time term faculty for the 2021 to 2022, 2022 to 2023 years, and started doing graduate teaching. Really invaluable experience that I do think assisted me greatly as I tried to get a tenure track job. So did want to get that out of the way, but gave with one hand, kind of took with the other. It gave me valuable experience, but also did kind of cut into my own research interests. But I did go on I stayed on the job market throughout that period. Did get certain nibbles, if you will, here and there at different institutions. But in 2023, during that particular job search cycle, this is what I kind of wanted to share with y'all. That kind of dovetails with what Michael said earlier. Coming up with the mission statement and an academic identity, and sort of making a peace with that, like being both open to other opportunities that might fall or only overlap with your interests, to know this is what I am intentionally seeking out. So one of the job opportunities that I had actually got to the interview stage with a Research 2 institution. And my background before coming to VCU, my professional background, I had worked for about a decade in archives and special collections. And while I did really love that work, and it was important to me, and a lot of my teaching, a lot of my research very much depends on primary source documents in that context. I had a job opportunity, went for the job talk, was a finalist for a position, and it was back working in archives and special collections. And we're looking for jobs that, we need a tenure track job. We want a tenure track job. But as I went through that campus visit, giving my job talk, et cetera, I was like, I don't know that I really want to do this. Like this is important to me, but I miss the classroom. I think that that's my identity moving forward. And yes, this job would give me opportunities to continue research and writing, but I have been in the classroom too long. I enjoy it too much. I feel like I have something much more to offer in that particular context. So I was actually relieved when I did not get that job. Honestly, it was a little disappointment around the edges, but no, this was not for me. And fortunately, I did receive several finalist offers, campus visits, whatnot, at institutions in the Appalachian region. They went great. Several opportunities were coming up there, but I did get the job at Marshall. Very grateful for that. But here's another sort of second prong of what I'm trying to convey to y'all. The MATX PhD, I'm so grateful that I got it. I have no regrets whatsoever over getting this particular PhD, but it comes with, I don't want to say caution. I don't want that to sound the least bit negative or even sinister there, but it does sort of demand that you, again, be confident in your identity, be able to articulate your identity as a scholar, because I do think there was some pushback going into a specific disciplinary department, English, maybe art history, whatever your interests were, of, well, you don't technically have an English PhD. So being ready to sort of provide that justification. And I do think I was that balance between fortunate and wise in my choices, that the hiring committee I know was made up of a number of interdisciplinary scholars. So film studies person, actually a library faculty member, And so that array of experiences that I had professionally, but also during my MATX experience, I actually think stood me in good stead there. But there's still this, I'll say, be blunt, a need to articulate, well, why are you an English professor? Why are you here in an English department now? And, again, no heavy pressure there, but I would urge y'all to be prepared for that. Again, coming up with that scholarly identity. And as for what I'm doing now, related to the MATX, teaching, I am the Appalachian Studies Specialist here at Marshall University. That's what they hired me for. Slight, not disappointment exactly, but I am all Appalachia all the time now as far as my teaching, and I do miss some of these other opportunities. But Christina, I will say I slip the indigenous literature in every opportunity that I get, doing that this semester actually. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm currently working on turning my dissertation into a book. I am working with an editor now. I have due dates, et cetera, for that. So that is my primary focus right now, along with the administrative duties that I wasn't actually used to. Again, previously it was all teaching all the time, but now that bit of transition into a tenure track position. But yes, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Paul. And I appreciate your, being frank about some of the challenges. I hope we can get into some of that, more in the Q&A. That's really important. Our next speaker is Dr. Allison Bennett Dyche. She is a teaching professor in the Department of English at the University of Pittsburgh, starting her role just last month in August 2024. Congratulations, Allison. She is teaching media literacy and introduction to journalism and nonfiction, and will be helping to envision and build a new multidisciplinary journalism program at Pitt. Allison spent the past 16 years advising collegiate student media programs at Savannah College of Art and Design, also known as SCAD, Appalachian State University, and Virginia Commonwealth University. And in those positions, she worked with student-run media outlets, including digital media, newspapers, feature and literary magazines, as well as radio stations. Allison has also spent time working as a professional journalist in newspapers, magazines, radio, and TV. Before coming to MATX's PhD program, she earned a BS in journalism from Georgia Southern University, an MA in documentary photography from SCAD, and an MFA in writing also from SCAD. Her dissertation title was Teach Me How to Podcast, Understanding the Rise of Audio Journalism and Its Place in the Curriculum. Over to you, Dr. Allison Bennett Dyche.
Thank you. Actually, I did want to point out that I dropped out of the MFA program at SCAD. So one of the things that I've done since I finished my bachelor's degree was work full-time throughout the time of getting my various degrees. So I was getting a degree for free from SCAD and the MFA in writing, but when I left that job, I left the program too because I was not going to pay out of pocket for that. So I've worked full-time advising student media at various universities. And actually, one of the things that drew me to the job that I had at VCU was the MATX program, because I wanted to get a PhD, but I did not want to do a traditional journalism PhD. And I really liked that MATX was interdisciplinary. You can kind of like tap into those different areas, and I had a background again in journalism and photography, so that really interested me. So I came to VCU in 2016 and started the MATX program in 2017. And I just started a new job a month ago. That's why my shelves behind me aren't really unpacked yet. I've got boxes back there still. Like Paul was saying, it's really important to kind of position yourself and know, who you are and kind of what you want to do. I'll talk more about kind of like my job search process, because I spent all of last academic year doing that while working full-time as a student media advisor at Appalachian State University. I was having so I graduated in May of 2023, so I'm the newest grad out of this group. And I already had a full-time job. I had a full-time job at App State, and I was having some kind of professional difficulties and decided to kind of go on the job market. So I consulted with Mary Caton and Chioki, who was on my committee as well, and kind of talked about, did I want to go faculty? Was now the right time to try to go for a faculty job? So they said yes. So I gave it a shot. So I ended up applying. Let me see. I wrote down numbers. I think it was like 30. I applied to 30 jobs, mostly faculty last year. I had a whole spreadsheet where I kept track of like deadlines, what was required, how to submit, all that sort of stuff, who was writing references for me, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I ended up applying to 30 jobs, and then this was between June of 2023 and January 2024. When you apply for jobs, most of the application windows are going to be early in the fall, late summer. So it's really important to kind of like make sure you're getting in that window to apply for stuff and you're searching. So I interviewed at about 15 places for the first round of interviews. Those are mostly just on Zoom. And then I made it to, let's see, I think about 7 interviews. I was invited for the second round of interviews. Again, I was working full time and also adjunct teaching on the side. So I also had a side hustle. So it became kind of a lot. So there were a few places that I ended up, withdrawing and deciding not to do the second round of interviews. For various reasons, scheduling, for myself, for my sanity, and like having a full-time job and like trying to get sleep and, things like that. Also some of the positions, once I kind of went through the first round of interviews and I did more research on them and I met some of the people, I realized it probably wouldn't be a good fit. Some of them, the salary didn't match the cost of living for the area. So that was also really important to kind of keep in mind. There were a few that I ended up pulling out of. I ended up with three job offers. One was a student media director job offer in Tennessee. And I kind of went back and forth. I was like, that's a job that I've been doing for 16 years. It would be so easy just to go continue doing that and not try something new. But then again, I talked to Mary, Caton, and Shioki, and they're just like, no, you shouldn't do this because this is what you've already been doing, and it would be kind of a lateral move for me, more or less. So I decided not to do that. And then I got 2 offers kind of back to back, one at App State, which is where I was working as a faculty member, and then one at Pitt. And I kind of, compared those two and what the offers were, what the specs were going to be, things like that. I ended up taking the job at Pitt. So I will say I do have a little bit of imposter syndrome working in English department without a background in English. But I was brought on board because of the expertise that I had in journalism, because of the 16 years I had spent advising student media outlets. I'd had taught students, just not in a classroom setting as much. I'd spent quite a bit of time adjuncting too, as well over the years. But I was brought on board because of all that, because in my dissertation, I did research related to audio storytelling and podcasting and kind of how those should be included in the undergraduate mass communication curriculum, especially for students who are wanting to go into journalism. So I had done a ton of research into how programs are set up. So I got to talk about that in my interview with Pitt, which was really, I think, key to making me, the top choice for the job. So I actually have a meeting tomorrow, the first one, to kind of talk about what the program is going to look like. I don't really know what the timeline is for getting it off the ground. But it's been, really interesting so far. I'm teaching media literacy, which I've never taught as a full semester class before. So I just feel like every class period, I'm trying to catch up and like figure out how to teach them these things. And then intro to journalism and nonfiction has been taught here every semester, but it's been mostly taught as more of a creative nonfiction kind of class, because creative nonfiction was founded in Pittsburgh at Pitt. So a lot of people kind of have more of that side of things and less of the journalism side of things. So I'm trying to figure out how to teach that class in a way that still honors the creative nonfiction, but also brings in more of the journalism, because that's what they want me to do. But yeah, MATX, I definitely, again, you have to be able to brand yourself and know how to talk about your expertise and set yourself up, because, you don't have one of those traditional PhDs. I didn't, again, want a traditional journalism PhD. But again, like the variety of the experience that I have really kind of set me up to do a role that, other people, apparently they had a lot of applicants for, and a lot of people that were kind of coming in from traditional journalism backgrounds, being professional journalists, but they wanted somebody who had kind of done both. And again, the research that I did for my PhD kind of set me up for that too. And I just wanted to make a quick note. I do have to leave at about 12:50 because I have to run to another building to teach class. So I'm going to drop my email in the chat, but please feel free to email me. I'm happy to share my spreadsheet with you if you want to see what the spreadsheet looked like. But yeah, I just wanted to give you all a heads up that I do have to dip a little bit early, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison. And thanks to all of our panelists for sharing a bit about your journeys. It was really interesting to see some overlap, and I want to encourage everyone. Now's a great time to raise your hand if you have a question or put a question into the chat. I also want to say a quick apology. I think this is humorous. I accidentally shared my own link to the Zoom. So there are a couple of other Mary Caton Lingolds in in the Zoom room right now, which I think is ironic because the critique of faculty and PhDs is often that we try to make mini-me's in the academy instead of preparing our students for, other kinds of careers. So I've literally made miniature me's. So if you're one of those Mary Caton Lingolds, please know that you too can ask a question, but maybe identify yourself before doing so. Just to kick us off while we wait for questions from the group, I would like to invite you all to speak a bit more about what some of you, mentioned, the sort of blessing and curse of the interdisciplinary degree, and maybe areas in which that was either a plus or a challenge. Allison and Paul spoke to that a little bit. Michael or Tracy, do either of you have anything to add on that score?
Yeah, I mean, I do. So when Paul mentioned that, I was like, yeah, I had that experience. So my, home discipline is English. And of course, when I was doing adjunct work, I did courses in English at Brightpoint. And so that's why they reached out to me. But then when you get to, getting to the level, okay, now getting everything approved for the position, one of the things they look at is the degree. And most folks would have a degree, a PhD in English. And so what they did though, and it's similar to Paul, they're like, but you've done it. You have the experience. It is your home discipline, right? So again, you're like making sure you're selling and making sure people understand, yeah, it's MATX. This is what this means, but this is the work that I did, right? So this is the focus. So this is where my expertise is coming from. So it did come up and getting on here in the community college setting as well. So again, I appreciate just kind of raising that as a point for students to be mindful of now ahead of time. So just starting to work towards selling that expertise. And I mean, what's wild about that too, though, is this is what I love about the degree. Someone who was more closely aligned to mass communications, right, and teaching courses over there or doing their research there could take this degree. They could bring it here as well, but just be in a different department. And I think that is what's so great about this degree, because we can be in so many different places just based on what it is that we are interested in and what's part of our mission, personal missions.
Yeah, I second that. I mean, I love the interdisciplinary degree. I'm really proud to have gone through the program. The only other area that I will name it to be something of note is when submitting articles for journals. So I had the exact same article, get feedback from a visual art journal saying, well, this is really this doesn't have much to do with art history. This is about Hannah Arendt, blah, blah, blah. And so then I submitted it to an Arendt journal and they said, well, this is really an art history essay. And so you're sort of caught in the middle when the people around you can't quite grasp the range. But other than that, it's been lovely.
Great. And I have one more general question for the group. Is there anything you would sort of tell your former self, now, knowing what you know now and having landed where you landed? I think our current students so often are focused on their, at least in the context of the program, many are working and doing all kinds of things outside of the program, but so focused on developing that dissertation topic, choosing an advisor, all those little nitty-gritty things. Is there any advice you might give to that person, either in terms of what they should be thinking about for after the degree, or any just general advice for getting through the degree and the kind of hard knocks that come with that? And I'll just open the floor to our panel.
So Mary Kate was my dissertation advisor, and she was fabulous with forcing me to not take on multiple extra projects. I did not always listen to her. I will say that, but she was great at kind of like, checking in with me constantly and like telling me like, okay, you need to say no to this. okay, you're at this point of your dissertation, please don't take on anything else right now. And I needed somebody to be that voice, like in my head, to do that, because I was thinking, long term, what did I want to do, and how is this opportunity going to help me kind of get there, and should I figure out a way to like manage this and make it work? But she was great with kind of like helping me kind of figure out like, okay, this is worthwhile, this one maybe not so much. Okay, you already agreed to this, let's figure out how you can do this and also still write the semester and things like that. So I think that was definitely really key. And I would say one thing for me, I started the PhD program and didn't really know what I wanted to research. And I spent pretty much most of that first fall semester meeting with Eric Robertson about research topic ideas. And there were multiple that he was just like, no, you shouldn't do this. And one piece of advice that he gave me that was really good early on was, if I ended up doing research related to student media advising, which again is where I'd spent the majority of my career, he said, you will be situating that hat firmly on your head. So do you want to spend the rest of your life doing this? And I was like, okay, that was a good piece of advice. So I ended up doing research in audio storytelling and podcasting because audio was something that I always wanted to learn how to do, but it never really had the space to learn how to do. So I kind of created the program around me learning how to do it and then doing research, and now I'm teaching classes like that. So I kind of used his advice to make the program into what I needed it to be, both personally long-term for like career, but also personally just for like creative outlets. I think that was really, really important to kind of not get stressed out that I didn't come in and immediately know what I wanted to do and was going to do, and then kind of have somebody that I could talk through all these ideas with, and he was able to kind of give me advice. And then once I landed on audio, he provided resources for me on campus and people to kind of reach out to and talk to, and that was how I got connected to Mary Caton, was through Dr. Garberson. So.
Yeah, I think just having those conversations with people once you have your committee together, because they're your biggest cheerleaders. I mean, I'm so fortunate that Christina, Dr. Stanchu, said yes to be my chair, right? Because I could not have done this without all that support. But it was really a community to support, because I had Dr. Godbeer in the office, I had Dr. Garberson upstairs in the house, and they were always checking, where are you? How far along? Are you almost there, right? So I had these conversations, but also I remember I had a conversation with Tobias Wofford. So he was on my committee, and it sticks in my mind because we were just talking about, well, what are talk about what your plans are, talk about what you're thinking about, talk about what your perfect job might be, right? There's really no such thing, but like to get close to that. And I was having a conversation with Tobias, and I didn't know this. He was like, oh yeah, I started in community college. Right. I started in community college, and I will always remember, this professor who really told him like how far he could go. And I thought that was impactful for me, thinking about what options I had and what I was, pursuing, what I was interested in. And that stuck with me because I was like, well, here's someone who's respected in this field. He is a professor here at VCU, and he started in community college. And I think that was just like a spark for me to say, oh, that is where I could make a difference as well. So it just opened up opportunities. So yeah, have those conversations. It's not just about what's happening in your dissertation, right? It's about what is happening just in your life too.
I will just add to that taking advantage of the very broad network of talent and interesting things that are going on around you in this program, I think is such an incredible asset to it, that because of the way MATX is poised between disciplines, you have so many people who are interested in what you're doing and are willing to kind of bring you into the fold in different projects. And so I think that, I wouldn't go back and tell myself that, because I felt like I did as much as one could do to do that. But I think it's such a strength of the program that we were able to do it.
I'd say the same, like listen to your advisors. I had fortune for the triumvirate of Christina, Dr. Garberson, and then the late Dr. Columbia, who was my advisor. And they did not steer me wrong at any point, both like regards to my academic writing, and then again, like as you prepare for your professional career. Yeah, listen to your advisors.
Bye, Allison, and thank you so much for being here. I'm going to put some of our MATX students on the spot to ask you to ask questions. I know that Kristen, Ryan, Maggie, and Tahir are here, and somebody who's one of the mini-me's that I don't know who you are, so you're hiding. But will one of you please pipe up? I'd love to hear what questions you have. And if you can raise a hand if you're willing to speak, or you can put it in the chat. I'm down for awkward silences, so I'll just be quiet until one of you asks a question. Anybody? Being so quiet. I think it's too bad when you can't see everybody's face. I think sometimes that makes you feel more like you're in a room. Oh, we got a question. Thank you, Tahir. Tahir writes, I'm curious to hear more about the process of refining your research focus in your first semester. Tahir's in a first semester here at VCU. And so do any of you have any insights to share about that?
I'll jump in. Tahir, I don't know what your main area of focus is and what methods course you're going to take, but my first semester, I took my art history methods course. And one of the projects we had to do in that class, but you could do it untethered to a class, is we did an extensive literature review on kind of everything in our broad range of what we think we might be interested in. And by the end of that, not only did I sort of have a lay of the land, but I also saw all the places in which that research could be pushed in different directions. So I think early on in the process, kind of figuring out what's being said and what the work has been done within a region of research is very helpful.
Thank you, Tracy. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, I don't even know if I knew my first year what my project was going to end up being. I was still trying to try things out and figure things out. So you're thinking about the courses that you're taking, the work that you're doing in those courses. And typically, you know, you can lean into what you're interested in and what you want to research and apply it to that course at hand. And that was always helpful. Just working through ideas that way, and just like whatever kind of sparked you, like, you know, what are you most interested in there, and let's kind of pursue that. But I know, like, even for my methods class for English too, it was the same thing. It was like a bigger, larger scale lit review that we had to do, and so you're kind of seeing more of the breadth of what's already out there, but you're also thinking then, what is it that's new? That where's that gap? I mean, it's just like the basic thing that we're trying to do, like fill in that gap. What's the intervention that I have? What perspective am I not seeing? What do I think is being overlooked? And just really kind of honing in on that, I think is important for getting that work done. But then I guess thinking beyond the dissertation to your research or work beyond that. What are you bringing new to the table? Just keep asking yourself that, because you have something. It is there, right? So just use this time to figure it out the first year or so.
Paul, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't know if I was fortunate or not, but I came into the program pretty focused on what I wanted to work with, which actually may have been a bit of a detriment because I did have a lack of flexibility, I think, as I pushed on, and it ended up being at Dr. Glumbia's urging, like, you need to, yes, you feel strongly about addressing these certain issues in your research, but for now, can you just let go of those and you can come back to those? And that did help. To be blunt, that helped me finish. So it's good to come in with an idea, but then also don't be too attached to every aspect of it.
I'd like to ask one final question while I've got this captive audience. Oh, we've got another question in the chat. I'll read that in a second if we have time. But I wanted to ask if there's anything you think that we as a program could do better to, if you were going to wave your magic wand, something that would have been helpful in the journey from, through the degree or from the degree to where you are now?
Well, you're already starting to do that by having, panels like this. So I think that is helpful. And I know I was speaking just this week to the 603 class, Dr. Al-Kazimi. And so, I mean, having alumni come in to courses could be helpful as well, just to hear that, because I think when we were going through, you have this general idea of like the cohort before you, right? And then after you've been there for a while, you have the cohort after, but it's always been the thing. It's always kind of hard to have everyone come together. Now, I think that might change a little bit the way you're doing the scheduling or whatever, because I got some insight on that the other night, just speaking to the class. But I think opportunities to I hear more about what students have done who have graduated, what they're doing. And I hope that this is helpful, and this could be something to continue.
Anyone else?
I'd
There's
agree
a
with that
question.
too.
Sorry to interrupt. There's a question here from our colleague in sociology I wanted to point your attention to, Mayor Caton. But Paul, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, it's seconding what Michael said, because I think that speaking for myself, but I got this sense from some of my cohort people, you're going to do this degree anyway. You apply for the MATX degree because you read about its contours, you read about its possibilities, and I was stubborn enough that I don't really care right now what the future holds after I get this degree. But as you were going through what Michael said, you're halfway cyber stalking like previous graduates to see what they're doing. So, oh, okay, I might be able to do this. I might be able to do that. And maybe you had, or I had these moments where I'm like, well, okay, what does this really mean? But then I think we all covered that today. It's just coming up with that identity, but then also being told that, no, this is what you can do if you cultivate these different scholarly identities, professional identities. And again, I don't want to say that it's like it was a big absence, but this is, yeah, really good. It would have been great to see something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I wanted to, it looks like we've got just a moment. I'd like to respond to the question in the chat from Dr. Cow about how applicants to our program who are coming from disciplinary degrees like a sociology MA, what we're looking for in applications. That's a great question. And the first thing I always say is that interdisciplinarity, that we're really looking for students who are bridging fields and maybe anchored in a sociological methodology or a background, but we do look for some sort of bridge to another discipline, even if that discipline is something like Black Studies or something that's already an interdisciplinary degree, rather than someone who's anchored in a specific discipline. That's sort of our number one thing that we're looking for. But we welcome students from all degrees. And if you have any more questions or want to send a student my way, I'm very happy to talk with prospective applicants. One final question. Well, I wonder if we have time. Ryan Johnson, one of our current students, asked a specific question for Dr. Means, but if you could share a bit about your experience teaching at Brightpoint, and said that specifically, but he means more broadly as someone who also has a sentimental attachment to community colleges. How has it been teaching there in comparison to your time teaching at VCU?
Well, that's a good question, because I wonder now if things would be more in line, because like our student populations, I think, are what's traditionally been community college student population, maybe is starting to kind of blend more with what four-year institutions are going, but our focus is always on that transfer pipeline anyhow, right? In the path from community college to four-year institutions. But I would say, just as a faculty member, I mean, obviously it's different being an adjunct and showing up, but faculty member, you get access, and I have access to this breadth of professional development, even, instructional design support, right? That is there. And so I guess the biggest thing is that teaching is the focus, right? And that's the part that I love the most. We teach 5 courses a semester, typically. That's your teaching load. And so you can have your research interests and you have your expertise, but everything that you're doing is really going to be turned back to, or it must connect, right, to how does this help our students, right? And so that might be the biggest difference, because I think sometimes at a four-year institution, you know, you are the expert in whatever field it is, and you're teaching that course. And so it's that course content, and you might be doing all the research, but there's so much more that goes into what we do as far as like turning it back to the students and the additional student support that we offer as faculty members at a community college. There's more extensive advising that faculty members have to do, and some of the other service to the college. But I love this question, and I would love to talk with you more about it, Ryan and others. So please, hopefully you get our information, and don't hesitate to reach out and let's talk.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. I see our time has ended, and I know folks have to run off to teach and meetings and all manner of things. I want to thank our panelists so much for sharing your wisdom and your thoughts. This has been wonderful, and I do hope we can do something like this again. And also, I intend to, try to stay in better touch with our alumni, and you're always so welcome here at MATX and at the HRC. And thank you again to the Humanities Research Center for hosting us.